There's this idea that being reachable all the time is just part of being responsible. If you reply quickly, you're professional. If you're always available, you're reliable. If you respond right away, you're doing life correctly. And for a long time, I bought into that completely. I've worked in tech for over a decade, so being reachable wasn't just encouraged, it was expected. Slack, emails, messages, meetings, there was always something waiting for a response. At first, it felt fine, even validating, but what I didn't notice until much later was that constant reachability was quietly costing me. Because being always reachable doesn't just take your time, it takes your mental availability. When you're constantly open to interruption, part of your attention is never fully yours. There's always a low-level alert running in the background. Even when nothing is happening, your brain is waiting for something to happen. And that waiting, it's exhausting. I didn't realize how tense I was until I started experimenting with being less available. Not dramatically, not disappearing, just not responding to everything immediately. At first, it felt wrong. And actually, that reaction alone told me a lot. Because if being unreachable for a short period triggers anxiety, that's not a personality trait, that's conditioning. We've been trained to believe that immediacy equals value. But here's the hidden cost that no one actually tells you about. When you're always reachable, you're rarely fully present. You're half in the conversation, half anticipating the next interruption. You're almost like half resting, half living, half responding. The fragmentation adds up. And over time, it affects how deeply you think, how calmly you feel, how connected you are to what you're actually doing. I noticed it most outside of work, even through moments that were supposed to be personal, such as dinners, weekends, quiet time. I felt this subtle urgency to be on call, not because anyone demanded it, but because I had internalized it. That's the part that really got to me. No one was forcing me to be always reachable anymore. I was doing it to myself. When you work online long enough, availability becomes an identity. And you start to equate being responsive with being good. So stepping back feels like a failure or laziness, almost like you're underperforming in your role. But what surprised me was when I became slightly less available in my personal life, nothing bad happened. Relationships didn't fall apart if I responded within, that evening rather than straight away. Opportunities didn't just disappear. What did change was how I felt inside my own life. I felt less rushed, less scattered, more capable of staying with a thought. And that's when I realized something important. Being reachable doesn't make you more effective, it makes you more interruptible. And interruption isn't neutral. Every time your attention is pulled away, your nervous system has to reset. And when you never let yourself be unreachable, you never give your system permission to fully stand down. And over years, that creates this chronic tension that feels normal because you're so used to it. And this is especially true for millennials. We remember life before and after being constantly connected. So it almost feels uncomfortable to step back. We're so used to being constantly available that we were never taught that it was okay to be unavailable. But actually, unavailability isn't neglect, it's a boundary. And when you start thinking that boundaries aren't walls, but they're filters, being less reachable doesn't mean that you don't care. It just means that you care enough to protect your attention. And for me, that's what this has all become about. Not disappearing, not rejecting technology, not becoming hard to access out of spite. Just choosing when I'm reachable instead of being reachable by default. Especially outside of work, evenings are no longer an extension of my inbox. Weekends aren't catch-up time. They feel like mine again. And that shift, small as it sounds, changed how I go about my life. I'm more present in conversations, more grounded in my body, less anxious without knowing why. The hidden cost of always being reachable is that you lose yourself in the gaps. And the hidden benefit of being less available is that you start coming back. So if you've been feeling scattered or tense, or strangely exhausted even when things are fine, it might not be burnout. It might just be constant access. And you're allowed to change that. You don't owe everyone immediate access to you. You don't need to justify slower responses. You're not failing by being unreachable for a while. You're recalibrating, and in a world that constantly demands your attention, that's not irresponsible. That's necessary.